Welcome to Maidens and Magick.
Joy from Spain, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing okay, hanging in there, trying to fight the good fight, doing what I can.
Really
So
nice to see your face.
it's really good to see you. You're another person that I've known tangentially through the Seattle scene for a super long time, but we've never been super well acquainted. So I'm really excited to get to talk to you now. Yeah. So I wanted to start out, you guys, you are one of the most prolific musicians and composers, I think that, I mean, I know the Seattle music scene is pretty incestuous, but man, you're just all up in it. And I did not mean to do that. So we're going to stop that and we're going to stop the recording right now because that was gay. Back on. So I am going to, as Joy knows, and maybe some of you know, I am a huge fan. Man, I'm just a huge fan of everything that you do. Honestly, a lot of times I've noticed when artists have multiple projects, they all kind of start to sound the same. Sometimes it's a risk people take. And I have never felt that way with your music. I feel like each project is so very different. This Lady Lazarus was the one that I was asking you. When I listened to this, I distinctly heard an opera, like a complete opera. And I have no idea if that was your intention or not.
I would say that a lot of the albums that I've been a part of over the years, like if I was kind of the driving force behind the music, I definitely view in an operatic way. And I feel like there's a lot of albums out there where there's kind of one sound or one voice, one character is singing all of the songs all the way through. And I feel like that's kind of become the default. But for me, I prefer to have it be more operatic, where you have these different, characters having these different points of view or different experiences that are being created by the instrumental music. And I feel compelled to do that in several projects for some reason.
Yeah.
It's dramatic. And a lot of the albums that I, came to love when I was young, a lot of artists at that time, and, like in the 80s, that was pretty common. You'd have these really big dynamic shifts and, here's a song that's really slow or ambient. And then after that, they have something that's like really exciting. And for some reason, things have kind of leveled out to where people want to put on an album, the whole thing has the same mood. But that's not necessarily what I've felt driven to do.
Do you think that that's something that happens in production, or do you think that that's just the watered down intention nowadays? People are like, they want a very homogenized kind of sound. Do you think they go into it with that? Well, far be it from you to guess the intentions of others, but is that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where it comes from. I think it's possible that some people just really like a certain sound, and that's what they want to do, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that like makes them go, yes, they're excited by it. But then there's other people who want that kind of dramatic shift, storytelling,
Yeah, and that's what I really get. That's really well put. It is very much storytelling. And Lady Lazarus starts out with this beautiful, like orchestral kind of moment. And am I correct that that's all real strings? That's not, or like real instrumentation, or is it?
Yeah. So that is actually a recording of a piece that I wrote when I was going to school for music. And so it's got, it's an original recording from the 90s of a piece that I wrote. And then later on the album, there is a new interpretation of that piece that I created at the time that this album was put together.
So that would be the 2008 version versus the 1993 version that we're seeing here. Yeah, and this album, I'm so fucking in love with it, because as I am with just about everything you do, but this one to me, and I think Scourge of a Woman, we'll get to in a minute, feels so complete. Like and well, also mongrel gods too, which I'm getting ahead of myself because so much good music here. I did notice that you released this one as a special sustainment, was a special, didn't the proceeds went to something?
Northwest Harvest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just wanted to see if we could raise a little bit of money for a organization here that supplies people with food.
Yeah, I've seen that on your Instagram. You do a lot of like food distribution or preparation. I don't know exactly, but I've seen you making huge vats of soup and so forth. Is that for the same place or a different place?
That was just for more of a mutual aid group that was in my neighborhood.
Okay.
And
What was it called again?
Soups and stuff.
Soups and stuff.
Fortunately, not really active at the moment.
Okay.
The people who were doing it kind of, one moved to Atlanta, another one moved to a different area. So it's kind of on hold right now, but I'm definitely interested in doing more things like that. But I feel good that we were able to give away a lot of hot meals last year.
Yeah, that's amazing. I was working with a couple of places here in DC, Kyanite Kitchen and a couple places, but I was working more in a funding aspect. I wasn't able to actually get out there and do a lot of the work. So I gave money where I could, but became very important during the pandemic. I don't know. Well, Seattle got crazy with the shanty town. What was the town that was living in Volunteer Park called there?
Well, basically because of the housing crisis here with all of the, greedy developers and whatnot. I don't know. It's a long list of problems, but basically every park for the last few years has been a tent city because nobody knew where to go.
Right. They broke up Tent City. For people not familiar with Seattle, we had a very comparable to that in LA. We had a tent city, and when they broke that up, a lot of people were displaced, and this is what Joy was helping to do to feed some of these people, right?
Yeah. There's just a lot of people around who don't have anything, and it's really, I'm not a rich person, so I can't really do much to stop it or help. But that was one thing that, a small group of people can do, is just try to rally some supplies and, get stuff out there. I don't know what's going to happen now. We have a new mayor coming in, and I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, we were talking about before we started recording, we were talking about all this social unrest that was happening. And we're going to get to the Eye of Nyx album that you created right around the George Floyd protests and insanity that was. I was saying I was really hoping we were going to keep that momentum going forward, and that we were going to see some real social upheaval. And you made a very astute observation that about sports, which if you don't mind repeating yourself the way you said it before, was pretty spot on.
Well, I feel like there was a lot of people going out in the streets, and they were also, trying to demand change. And then the right-wing backlash to all of that was starting to gain some momentum. It looked like it was going to be pretty bad. A lot of people were worried about some kind of a civil war happening around the election.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, it was just really fucked. And then as I started to think about, well, what's going to happen this fall? And then I was like, well, as soon as they start sports, I bet a lot of these weekend warrior guys, or the gravy seals, as my friend likes to call them, they're just gonna oh, I gotta watch the game. And that's exactly what happened. A lot of the more, quote conservative, right-wing fuckers, they just, as soon as professional sports started up again, I think that is actually what stopped it from happening for real. If they had not gotten the sports going again, there was all these fucking macho guys, they're like, oh, I'm gonna go kick some liberal ass or whatever. And it's just they get really easily distracted by football and baseball and basketball and I don't know.
All the balls, all the
All the
sports.
balls. They get distracted by balls.
I think that's what we're really getting at here.
Yeah.
You need a good red-blooded ball outlet, I guess. I don't know. It's just crazy to me. But yeah, that was interesting when you said that. I was like, gosh, I didn't even make that connection. And I think you're absolutely right. Trying to keep us on track with the music here. I question, is there any chance that Mongrel Gods will reunite? Because Joy, I got to tell you, this is some of the best fucking music I've ever heard in my life. And I'm really, really glad that I got to see you guys perform live, but really heartbroken that this is the only album you released.
Well, I don't think we're going to reunite. I think it's just that everyone's life is just so different now from what it was back then. You know, back when Mongrel Gods was formed, we were all kind of associated with this monthly or twice monthly series at the Mercury Club, where we brought in a PA and did live shows there, and we had like experimental and noise nights.
Cartel? Is that what you're talking about?
Huh?
The Caligula Cartel? Is that what you're talking about?
No, this was like a music series that we were doing at the Merc on Wednesday. It was like a Wednesday every month. There was like a series called Threat that had more experimental music of all different kinds. And then we were like, well, fuck it, let's have metal bands. So then we had another night with metal bands, and you know, it was a lot of fun, but it was also a lot of work. And then Nim ended up quitting working at the club. We kept running into some issues with the management over, you know, storing equipment and stuff like that. And so, you know, eventually we just had to disassociate from that place. And Ollie stayed on, and I think he might still work there actually.
Last I heard.
Yeah. But I know that he had some health issues, and he wasn't really able to be in a band for a long time. And so we all just kind of went our other ways, and Chris and I started getting really involved with the other projects. So I don't think we're going to have a reunion, but I'm not saying I wouldn't, but it doesn't look likely right now. However, I'll let you know, and I can send it to you privately. And we did actually record 3 other songs, one of which is 17 minutes long.
I literally meditate this album. I would love that. I think so. I've known Nim for a lot of years too. He's a fantastic human. I really like him a lot. And there's tracks on here where he's doing, and I know he had spent some time in Japan right around this time too. And so I can almost kind of hear that Eastern influence in some parts of it, where he's doing that really deep om, and you're kind of doing the ethereal singing in the background, that I just think it's so sublime. I literally meditate to it. I'm really just beautiful stuff that I feel really lucky to have gotten to see. The other project of yours that I don't know if you're going to resurrect anytime, but I also felt very lucky to see this at Narwhal. You did the whole it was really gorgeous. You had a guy there playing the accordion with you, and it was I don't know if that was one of your bandmates, typical bandmates or whatever, but can you tell us a little bit about what inspired this project?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So a number of years ago, I used to go to the old Lava Lounge a lot after work because I hated my job, and I would just go there and get drunk a lot. Yeah. And the bar manager, Sylvia, we just kind of hit it off, and she was telling me like, oh, I just started learning how to play the accordion. And I was like, really? And she's like, yeah, do you want to like sing with me? And I was like, sure. And so I don't know how it happened. I was just like, oh yeah, I love Edith Piaf and Marlene Dietrich and all that, you know, early cabaret stuff. So we just started playing together, and she ended up bringing in a couple of other people, you know, to play other instruments and stuff. We had a few different band members for a while. Okay. And yeah, I mean, we played a lot of gigs. We played a lot. We played at Georgetown Carnival several times. We did Portland Beer Fest, you know, stuff like that. Places where people want to drink beer and listen to polka rhythms and stuff too. I mean, we did some of that stuff. It was really fun.
Surprisingly large market for that. And you did what I think people can't really, I mean, you can listen to this album, you can buy it. It's amazing. I own it because I own everything that you do. But that narwhal space was so perfect for it. It just fits so well. The aesthetic just fits so well there. And I did only get to see you perform one time, but it really stuck with me. I really huge. And your vocal range, Joy, you said you went to school for music, and I wanted to circle back to that. Have you always been a vocalist naturally, or was that something that you had to learn?
Well, I always sang. Voice was definitely my first instrument, and my father was like what they would now call a music minister, but in the type of like kind of fundamentalist denomination that my parents belonged to. Right. They just call you a song leader because they don't want to sound like you're being too pretentious or something.
Hubris, Joy. So, hubris. That would be hubris.
Yeah. Yeah, no sins of pride, you know.
Right,
that sort of thing.
Level that ego, so, check it at the door.
Yeah, so I always sang, and then I started taking piano lessons when I was a kid. Yeah.
How many instruments do you play, by the way? Quite a few, it seems.
Well, I currently play piano and keyboards and guitar, and I used to play drums in Mongrel Gods. But I don't play any drums anymore. That was a lot of work, and you have to have a place to do it, and it's a lot of equipment. So yeah. I've kind of just pared down to doing guitar and keyboard based stuff and singing.
Your second solo album, that's the name is escaping me right now. It's a lot of piano ballads. Why is this happening to me right now? This one, I feel like it's very ballad driven, and there's a lot of beautiful, beautiful piano in there too. I think, I just, it's so, and you write music too. I've seen pictures, right? Is that correct? You actually write sheet music, or am I mistaken?
Yeah, I do sometimes. Yeah, for certain types of pieces, it's just faster for me to just write it down. Rather than trying to demo stuff out, because that takes a long time.
Now, I think I've seen some sheet music from To End It All, which is, so Joy right now has two current projects. These are your two that we want to talk about, because you are actually recording and playing music, playing live shows for both. Eye of Nyx, man, I don't know how to explain how rich and textured it is. I can only tell you guys, I own all of these albums, and there's not a single album that you've released so far that I've been like, yeah, but that one wasn't very good. They're all just phenomenal. And which one was it that you recorded during the pandemic?
Well, we didn't record any of these during the pandemic, but Ligea actually was supposed to be released in April of 2020.
Okay.
So we had already, recorded it in 2019, finished all the artwork, everything. And then the vinyl was supposed to come out in April. But because of the lockdowns, we discussed with our label and decided, okay, let's push off a couple of months in the future for the release date, see if things are better. And so they assigned June 19th for the release date. And they're a label that's based in Germany. They also have a new US division, which we're a part of. Okay. And then with everything that was happening after George Floyd was murdered, it just became like none of us even cared if the album came out anymore, because it was just like, this is the wrong time. This is the wrong place. We're the wrong people to be focusing on. Yeah. So we had put several years of work into this album, and it was very, obviously it was difficult for everyone in the music world to see our opportunities evaporate for playing live and touring, and then to have so many other important things going on around us. It's just like the focus, any kind of focal point of our album. It was pretty difficult to want to uphold that,
Yeah.
So
but you found it a way to persevere and to make it happen. How was it a big, it sounds like it must have been a real big head change, first of all, like we're gonna put this out despite all the social upheaval, right?
Well, when you're working with a label, they have everything kind of lined up in a certain way. So it's not like it's not like when you self-release stuff and you can just decide. Yeah. I mean, they're a label that's been around for, since the mid 90s, and they have to ship stuff to all these different countries, and, whatever was going on in Europe was just completely different from what was going on here. So we just rolled with it. We let the announcement out to our social media and our friends. And then we just kind of waited. And just focused on other things for a while. And eventually, once I had some vinyl in hand and all of that, we started to promote it. But it just, the timing was just not right at all when the actual release date happened. So we kind of shifted a few months later. I mean, another thing, Anne, is that when the protests in Seattle were happening, so I don't know if you remember too much about Capitol Hill, but the police station.
Oh yeah.
and then the autonomous zone that was created right next to it at Cal Anderson Park. Our practice space is 1 block west and 1 block south of the police station.
Oh, were you below the crypt? What is it called?
Not that one, but just on the other side of the street in the basement.
Okay.
So our practice space was basically almost underneath the CHOP.
Wow.
So, it's just like 1 block away from there. So when the police started, doing all their flashbangs and all that bullshit, and people, there was a guy who was shot by one of the police officers' brothers. It was so much shit going on it was pretty destructive what the police were doing. And so I just went down there and got any expensive shit out of there and just had to keep it at home. I was like, well, I guess we can't practice down here.
Yeah.
It was just too uncertain as to, what was going to happen with all of that. So I don't know. It was very interesting going through that time.
And that's really extra because everybody in the music, field, however related you are, whether you're actual musicians or like I have another friend of mine, very close friend, who actually does booking for bands and helps them with their tours and getting their gear and their vans and their hotels and all that. So, I mean, this pandemic decimated live venues. It was so hard for musicians just in general, but then you had that added stress of being really literally in the heart of it like that. And like probably it's sometimes even fearing for your safety, or at least the safety of your equipment. That's a whole lot to take on.
I mean, when you, in the grand scheme of things, if a couple of guitars got burnt down in a building, that would be upsetting, but I think it would be a lot more upsetting of what the fucking cops were doing to people during, and always do to people. But it was just, it was not a very, let's just say, it was not a time that any of us were really focusing too much on music. Let's just put it that way. There were plenty of other things to focus on and be involved in, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
And there was one day though that Masaki and I actually went down. We actually went down into the practice space, and we recorded a live set under there to end it all. While the autonomous zone was going on, so that was kind of fun. We were like, I guess we better go do this now because there's probably, this is not going to last long. Is the feeling that we got,
Right. Like the whole world was just burning around all of us. And so Eye of Nyx, to get back to this, is truly a band. I would assume a lot more, and I would like to hear it from you though. All of your other projects feel very, you're definitely the driving force. You're definitely the creative force. In this one, does it feel much more collaborative to work with an actual band?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a very, we have a very equally distributed amount of labor that goes on with writing the songs. There's several people in the band who are multi-instrumentalists. For example, our other guitar player, the main guitar player, Nicholas, he also plays keyboards, and he, our bass player, Zach, and Luke, they all know how to do home recording. So they're all, they've got that going on. And Zach plays bass and guitar and does vocals. Luke, I originally knew him as a virtuoso keyboard player. And he does all this crazy prog stuff, but then he's also an amazing drummer. So, it's kind of like everybody in the group has different ideas on how what path the songs could take. So we spend a lot of time just trying stuff out, talking, arguing a little bit here and there.
It's bound to happen.
Yeah. But I think it's great because I can tell when I put on an album, I can tell usually when there's an album the whole thing was written by one person and they just got people to come in and play the other stuff.
Yeah.
Play the other instruments. Like I could tell when that's happening because it doesn't have the same level of tension usually,
Interesting. I feel like I know at least one time I saw Mongrel Gods and Eye of Nyx play together, which probably you guys did more than once, but I know at least once. I'm sure, unless I'm imagining that, it might have been a fantasy of mine. I don't know. But
I don't remember doing that to myself.
Really? I'm sure that you did. Really? Okay. I know I've seen you both, and when Eye of Nyx plays, it is really this submersive, like wall of sound, kind of like watching swans or something, where you're just so enveloped in the sound that it's really a visceral thing. But when I've seen you sing like with Mongrel Gods, I have to tell you, 110% all eyes are on you. You have such command of the room that people are literally like breathless holding each other because your voice is so intense and powerful. And I'm going to quit fangirling on you so much. I'm sorry. Like really, I mean, you're really a force of nature. And I getting to like, I have other questions, but I want to get to all your music. This one, Scourge of a Woman, this is your other active project right now. To end it all, this is just you and Masaki, correct? Or no?
All of the recordings that are on Bandcamp were created by Masaki and myself. Okay. And our new album that is pretty much done, we're just adding a couple of little finishing touches on it. It was recorded by the two of us, and then we have a guest who's going to be adding a little bit of her offerings to a couple of the songs when we go back in the studio next month. And my friend Anne from Serpentant, she's joined our live act. So the new To End It All album, we have so many layers of things happening that we needed a third person to play the songs live. Wow. Because we didn't want to give up. We didn't want to give up anything.
Yeah.
So she's playing guitar and doing vocals, and then I'm doing vocals and keyboard, and Masaki's doing electronics and keyboard, and I'm doing some electronic stuff too. So we're a 3-piece now. And so the new album is expanded a little bit from these previous ones.
Mm-hmm. And Scourge of a Woman was the second one that I listened to, where I thought, absolutely, that's a fucking opera. Like that is a beginning to end. I could hear the journey there. What is a little bit different about this one is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a little bit more politically charged in part. I mean, you're talking about rapists being burned, right? That's
Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I feel like this, I feel like everything with To End It All has more, I guess you could say, political undertones. I feel like with I Have Nyx, it's more about, a lot of the songs are more about broader concepts or more universal type of thoughts, feelings, topics, something that maybe stands the test of time, sort of thing. Or has roots in mythos, you know, something that dates further back than current civilization,
right.
bigger things that are older than just like societies.
Yeah.
And with To End It All, it tends to be lyrically more focused on internal or you know, what my experience has been like moving through the world. It's more like contemporary. What am I feeling now, or what is someone feeling now, or what is something that specifically, you know, you know, I don't know, just things that are more urgent, I guess, things that feel more urgent, or things that feel more in the foreground of your mind rather than something that you might think about while you're dreaming. And that's what.
Is there intentionality with, I have played, you know, I Have Nyx and To End It All for other people, and I've gotten a lot of, whoa, holy shit, that's satanic as fuck, you know, like, and people just kind of assume, and I don't know, I don't know if you had any intention, and this can kind of, by the way, we're going to plug all of your new show, or all of your upcoming shows and stuff at the end too, and drop links in YouTube so everybody can find all of this stuff on Bandcamp and all of the upcoming shows. We don't want you to miss out on anything. But this is a kind of a good segue into talking about, well, one of the topics of my show, Magick, Maidens and Magick. You're a maiden, and I feel like you're very magic, whether or not your intention is to be satanic. Is there any amount of that truth in any amount of truth in the fact that it is, it sounds so stupid to say, is your music satanic, Joy? Because you know, that's a dumb question, but is there, what goes into it? What kinds of, what you said, mythos, what other kinds of magic or stuff go into your music and your lyrics?
Ablaze, conflagrate, cauterize, brand, scald, exacerbate, torch, desire, seduce, lure, seduce, lure, erode, entice, consume, seduce, lure, seduce, lure, seduce, lure, seduce, lure.
I've played Ivnix and Tendidol for a lot of people, and I get a lot of like, holy shit, that's satanic, right? And it does, there's a very dark, you know, kind of vibe to a lot of that music, probably because of what you were saying. It involves, some of it is politicized, and some of it is like mythos and other stuff that you're drawing from, the general like fears that we've carried with us as a human species from the beginning of time. But I had to ask point blank, are you a Satanist? Which was one of the dumbest questions I've ever asked anybody. And you said,
yeah, I don't affiliate with any particular group, and I don't subscribe to any particular, you know, path, especially any that were just kind of defined or created by men. I don't really, that's not my thing. I also, you know, having spent childhood with a lot of religious teaching and a lot of religious oppression going on, I tend to really feel repellent against any kind of strictures, any kind of scriptures. Also, you know, sure, I'll dabble or read about things or study things for a little while just so I know what the fuck's going on.
right.
But I'm, you know, at this point, I would consider myself to be an atheist. I've had plenty of experiences that are not explainable according to what I would call, what's the word I'm looking? It's not conventional reality, but there's a term where it's kind of like the reality that everybody seems to agree, such as laws of physics. I've definitely experienced things that seem to fall outside of that, whether it was because of my perception or whether it was because there's other forces at play. Those both could be totally true. I just don't feel like I need to spend my time figuring that stuff out. I'm not intensely curious about that anymore. I don't need explanations. I don't need to know. I'm more comfortable. I've spent a lot more time, you know, over the last, I would say 15 years, more focusing on creating worlds. So, you know, taking the experiences and, you know, any kind of, you know, more studying, like, why does this situation cause me to feel this way? And how can I create a world for that experience to live in with music, with song, with making an experience. Okay, now it lives inside here. It no longer has to keep living inside me. And so I feel like it's more like I create this world, and anytime I need to, you know, if I need to perform a piece that has a certain emotion to it, you know, I don't have to walk around with that level of rage all the time. I don't have to walk around with fear and resentment and horror and I don't have to walk around with those things just bouncing all around inside me and trying to take over my thoughts all the time, because I've created spaces for all of those things to live in. And so I guess that would be my kind of sorcery, witchcraft, magic, whatever words you want to use for it. That is what I'm doing. I'm not, I just kind of, I learned a few things here and there, but as far as terminology goes, you know, I'm not going to subscribe to any one particular group's way of explaining that sort of thing. And I also feel like I feel like a lot of what you see out there for religions and paths, I feel like a lot of times people get very focused on things that have absolutely nothing to do with anything that pertains to me. You know, I just don't care about a lot of what they're pursuing. And so for me, this other way of existing and creating art and making environments for these emotional states to live in, I view it as a positive. And now also I'd like to mention that in traditional psychology, like, Western style psychology, that they call that compartmentalization or something like that. I don't.
Unhealthy.
Yeah, they claim that it's unhealthy, and I'm like, well, I don't know. It seems to be working great for me. So, I think as long as you're aware of what's happening and you're intentionally doing it, and you're, for me with art, I'm not trying to make something that's uplifting to people who like to go to the mall, and that's not what I'm doing here.
We're not here to end it all music or something in the elevator. It's not,
I would be shocked if that ever happened. But for some of us, because of the life experiences that we have had, and because of the certain levels of intensity or traumatic experiences or whatever it is, because we were twisted, warped, or broken in a certain way, or pressurized, or whatever, or left or neglected, whatever it was, because of that, we need our experiences with music and art to have a certain quality to them, and that's who I'm doing this for. I'm not doing it for, people who don't need something at that level of intensity. I'm uninterested in those people entirely. They don't matter to me at all in the sense of creative output. That's not who I'm communicating with.
No, they're just kind of genetic driftwood, really. I mean, they're just kind of, that's why.
Well, the thing is, everything else is being made for them. The whole
Right.
fucking American music industrial
Right.
complex is being created to make something fun and happy for a bunch of people that I don't have anything in common with. So
Right.
it's just, I would say that, like, anybody who can connect with a band like To End It All or Mongol Gods, I mean, let's be friends,
Hi.
Let's be friends. I don't care where you live in the world. Come on.
Yeah, and it's so important. I mean, this is why people create. They create because it's cathartic and because they want to purge themselves or exercise themselves of sometimes of these feelings, and to create a world. How you described it is so beautiful, because once you release it, on the one hand, once you release something, and I feel like this, I'm a writer, and I feel like when I write something, I put a novel out there, it's no longer mine. It's open for interpretation. It belongs to the world. It belongs to something outside of me. But at the same time, it gives me a safe place to go back and revisit that emotion and that trauma, whatever it is. It gives me a safe place to go back and kind of work through it when and if I need to. And I feel so much of that in your voice. Like I can't, talking about how powerful your voice is. I mean, not just literally, but like metaphysically, it resounds with me. Now, I kind of just, can check a lot of boxes off of what you just said. Like, I am a person who's had a lot of trauma. I am a person who also eschews this very conventional, kind of, society, like the music being made for them, for that genetic driftwood, doesn't interest me at all either. So I do think, I got that
Brutal,
from
man.
Harold a million years ago, and it stuck with me. But it does help us find each other. I think it helps, like souls, kind of. Do you know the Harold I'm talking about? Harold McNeil?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Okay. He was a artist that was very predominant in the Seattle scene in the late 90s, early 2000s. And you've been in Seattle for a minute, haven't you?
I moved here in 2004.
Okay.
So I missed some of the kind of,
okay.
I miss the late 90s stuff.
Too bad.
But yeah.
Yeah. Well, so you kind of answered another one of my questions that I like to ask people is, and I think you did, but I'm just to put a finer point on it. Like, I'm also an atheist, and more consider that to be a political decision, because the right has politicized and weaponized religion so fucking much. that I want nothing to do with it. And I want, like, I don't know about you, but did you go through the obligatory, like, oh, maybe I'm agnostic, and, you know, or were you just from the beginning like, nope, atheism?
Well, when I was pretty young, I mean, you know, I was surrounded by people who would always talk about praying and talking to God.
Yeah.
And I would just be laying in my bed in the dark and I would try it. You know, I was a little kid, I'd try it and I was like, I don't hear anything. I mean, that was pretty much it for me. I was just like, I don't know what these people are talking about. It, you know, and I tried a little bit more when I was maybe, you know, 12 or 13. I kind of tried to get into the church thing and got, you know, see if I could get swept up in it or something. And, you know, then I realized like I made friends with a guy who was gay, and I was like, wow, these people would totally hate this guy and tell him he was going to hell. And I was like, well, I guess I'm never going to go to church again. You know, I was like, they're the biggest hypocrites on earth. So I just kind of went, I don't care about any of this.
Right.
They're full of shit.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Now, there's some good people, sure. Of course, there's good people everywhere.
Right.
Mixed in. But as a movement, I feel like you have to, and this is why I don't like to subscribe to any particular religious or political groups, because they're always led by flawed human beings.
Yep.
They're always, you know, they always end up becoming more like whatever the majority of the group wants. And I just, yeah, not for me. Now, do I have a circle of friends in, you know, around here who are all very witchy and amazing? Of course.
Yeah.
Do we tend to agree on a lot of shit? Yeah.
Yeah.
But would we try to force somebody out if they didn't have exactly the same thoughts that we do?
Right.
Hell no.
Right. Right.
You know?
Yeah. And, you know, and I know you and I have a lot of mutual friends, so I can say with certainty that, you know, some of your friends, our mutual friends, are definitely practicing witches in a much more ritualized sense than probably you. I'm guessing, I mean, I'm not either. I'm very theosophical and I kind of do my own thing. And I'm guessing you're kind of that way too, given your aversion to subscribing to anyone, you know, kind of practice, or do you practice anything? Are you full on thelema or?
Yeah, I don't do any of that sort of thing, but I consider everything that I do with my art to be part of my ritual experience.
Yeah.
And for me, it's kind of like my understanding of like qigong in the Chinese tradition is like, okay, so you play the harp and you practice, you know, 2 hours a day or whatever it is, where you're constantly thinking about it. You practice all the time. You learn how to become a performer. You work with other people. You have to, you know, maintain your body in a certain way so that you can play as good as you can. And that becomes it's kind of like your life essence. Yeah. And that is how I view composing music. So for me, it's more about the composing side, the creation side. And for me, that kind of practice kind of takes up all of the energy that I have outside of just, you know, how do we stay alive? Right. So
valid question.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, increasingly valid. And so I guess looking at people, you sometimes have these perceptions and sometimes they're misconceptions. I early on would have thought Joy practices some dark witchcraft, just listening to your music and then working through that and really giving it a second listen, and now definitely talking to you and getting to know you. Okay, I was off base there. Another thought I had was Joy is a very good earth witch. I notice you posting a lot of stuff about the environment, about pipelines, anti-pipeline, you guys, right? About mushrooms, about different things. Is that spiritual to you, or is it more political, or both? Could be equal.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I guess I never really thought about separating those two things in a way.
Interesting.
And maybe that's not, you know, maybe that's not for the best, but I genuinely feel like I think it's kind of hypocritical when people well, for example, I've always thought that Christians are extremely hypocritical for claiming that they were given, this stewardship over the earth.
And what the fuck have they done with it?
And all they do is fucking rape and pillage it all the time. I'm like, oh, actually the word is dominion. They believe they have dominion over the earth. Oh, okay.
Interesting.
It's just disgusting, So, and then it's very difficult for all of us who live in the modern world because, here we are using energy. We're using computers. We have cell phones. We press music to vinyl. We do lots of things that are terrible for the environment. We get into vans and tour. We take airplanes to go to a festival. It's like you have to start. It's like, I think somebody like Ted Kaczynski was extremely off on many things. And he was, obviously a total piece of shit, misogynist pig, probably racist from some of the things I've read. But I think he was right about a couple of things having to do with industrial society. And I do actually, think that he is one of the only people that gained notoriety in this country for actually retreating from the whole thing. I mean, that's what we kind of make jokes about it now. Like, oh, I guess you're just going to go live in a Unabomber shack now. Like when somebody's getting really extreme with their stuff.
It sounds more and more appealing to me. I don't know, I'm kind of on board.
You know what I mean? It's like these are the things. It's like these are the places that your mind goes.
Yeah.
When you want to stop the madness.
Yeah.
But you don't know exactly how to go about doing it because you know that anything that you do on a personal level. I mean, what did the pandemic just show us? Like, it doesn't matter how many of us try to do the right thing. There's going to be this certain number of people and their puppeteers who will never go along with it. And the more you try to get them to go along with something that's, supposedly going to benefit everyone, the more they double down and say, fuck you. So I just feel like things like that are what make you feel like there is some kind of a weird hellscape that we're all in. And I hate to use the term hell, but it does feel that way sometimes, doesn't it? It's just like, no matter how many steps you can try to make on a personal level in one direction, there's always this other group of people who are just they just want to go in opposition to it.
Well, and nothing punctuated that more than the pandemic, because there were definitely times where I thought, this is really bringing out the worst of people, and then there were other times where I thought this is bringing out the best of humanity. There were so many people that band together that did things, community service oriented projects like you did, and we had so much of it going on in DC. You would be really surprised that this, we're at the beast of the belly here, but there were so many good community outreach programs, and just I saw a lot of good in humanity. But man, it was really a mixed bag, wasn't it? Because it really did bring out the worst in so many people. So it's hard.
And I feel like even if like 30% of Americans, and that's a really high number, were willing to throw away all of their or recycle all of their devices and stop, and just move to a completely like carbon zero emissions model and all of that, there would be a good 30% of the population who would be like, oh, great. Well, then I'm going to build a monster truck.
Right. More,
I'm going to buy 5 Hummers.
Right. Exactly.
Just to say, fuck you, soy boy. So it's kind of like, I don't know. There's no fucking hope here. Actually, my older sister, who I'm very close with, she moved her family to the Netherlands in May because she was just like, she was really uncertain about what was going to happen here. And she did not want her child growing up here, dealing with this. I mean, Europe's not perfect, obviously, but
how do you,
I would call it harm reduction.
Yeah, that's what. And how do you feel about it? Like, are you ready to make a similar or parallel move, or are you like, I'm in it and I'm here to fight the good fight, and I'm American, so I'm gonna stick it out till the bitter end? It's a tough question, right? It's impossible.
I can't answer that question right now. I really can't. I mean, it's something that I can't. Well, I can imagine myself living here for a while, you know, I really enjoy, no, enjoy is not even the word, but I'm deeply entrenched in the projects that I'm working on right now. And I don't have any desire to leave my community,
Yeah.
because I feel very tied to this place and the people here, and in a positive way, not in some weird, like codependent way. I just feel I've always really loved living in this part of the country. And,
Do you mean
you know,
the
I've lived,
Pacific Northwest?
yeah, I mean, I've lived in other places and it just didn't work for me. And so, but at the same time, I can't imagine being an old person here, you know, because it's too hard, because no one cares and there's no help. And so it's like either you kill yourself while you're still with it, or you've got to get out and go somewhere else before you get too old to take care of yourself.
Yeah,
and that's pretty much where I'm at, you know.
Yeah.
And
because there is something about the Pacific Northwest that people who haven't lived there don't really understand. And I know it sounds kind of hokey, but I've traveled all over the fucking world, and there's something about that landscape, about the land, and even about the people there that it creates a kind of devotion in people. People get very like, Seattle's my hometown. They have a lot of pride in it. Yeah, I've noticed it. I know people who will never leave there, and that's fine. That's totally their prerogative. But for me, when I was living abroad in Germany for a few years, and I was there when Trump was elected and the whole thing, and I was like, fuck that place, never going back. And then I had a problem with my visa and had to come back anyway, and thought, yeah, man, should I be fighting here on the home front? Like, is it, you know, less responsible or admirable of me to just flee the country and be like, fuck you guys, you know? It's a really hard decision that we're all faced with. And everybody,
well, I think that that's kind of the key, is like, I decided not to have children.
Yeah.
And so I don't have that. If I did, I would have figured out a way to get out, just like she did, I swear. But when I become the vulnerable one, when I'm old, you know, I don't want to leave myself in a position where I'm going to live in such a predatory society that will neglect and allow me to die.
Yeah, well,
I don't want that for myself, you know? And so I view my future elderly self as a dependent. And so I would need to make sure that they're taken care of. And I just don't think that's going to happen here, no matter how hard I try and how much money I'm able to save. It's just, what is
just out of curiosity, what is old to you now? When you say when I'm old, what put an age on that? Can you? Or is it a feeling?
I don't know. I mean, for me, I can't put an age, I can't put a number on it, but I would say if my body has declined just to a point where I'm unable to, you know, when I'm unable to work, or when I'm unable to earn enough money, that sort of thing, you know? Yeah. And I really hate this concept that a lot of my parents' generation would always say, like, you know, well, if you don't have kids, who's going to take care of you when you're old?
Right.
And I'm like, so you only had kids so somebody would take care of you? Is that what you're saying?
You're like, thanks. To work on the farm, to take care of us when we're old. Yeah.
And I'm not saying that my family said that, but I'm just saying, you know, I think that was kind of the
generational attitude. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I deliberately never ask anybody about age. Like when I do my show and I'm focusing on the maidens, whether they're maidens, mothers, or crones, I give a nod to the whole triad. Like I never ask anybody how old they are. That's partly because I don't want to be asked about my own age, because it's so fucking irrelevant. It's so meaningless.
I think development is more important than numbers.
Absolutely. And that's something we collectively need to work on as a society. I'm looking at my list here. Hold on, I want to make sure I'm getting through. Yeah, we really got through, but I guess I didn't ask you point blank, do you identify as a witch?
I do. Okay. I do. Mm-hmm.
God, you're very magical. You are. There's so much magic in you. There's so much that you bring to the world. honestly really, I'm doing I have a few Seattle musicians lined up, but I have to say I was so very excited to talk to you and to like, again, I have a pretty limited audience, but I'm going to put this out there as much as I can, drop all the links in there and make sure everybody knows how to get to your Bandcamp and all of your good stuff, all of your music and your shows. Cause, I don't know, Joy, music to me, it changes the world, and you really, yeah, you're doing good stuff for me. It's working so hard for me, and I want other people to appreciate you and become as obsessed with you as I am, because we all know that I'm pretty obsessed. It's kind of embarrassing. You guys, I bought so much music from Joy that she sent me free merch. She was like, she actually sent me some t-shirts and stuff. I was like, oh, yeah, I'm pretty obsessive fan. Do you find that, am I unique? Do most people who like you like all of your projects the way I do and just want everything, or are they very specific with Eye of Nyx or?
There's a mix. There's
Okay.
definitely a mix. Yeah. And this is another thing I find fascinating, because I'm the same way. Like when I get interested in an artist, I will often seek out, what all of their projects are, because I like to see like, what are the facets of this person's creative output?
Yeah.
But some people will just really hone in on one project because they like that kind of music, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's fine. I think both are completely, obviously valid and acceptable ways of being.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. Are there any, I'm just realizing I've had you for a long time and I don't want to jam up your entire day and I've got to go teach a stupid class, but are there any upcoming shows, things that you want to plug here in real time? What's coming up for Eye of Nyx and to end it all? You've been playing recently.
Yeah, I'd like to say that we kind of are in a little bit of a holding pattern after this weekend, without anything on the books for 2022 specifically.
Okay.
But I'm very glad to say that I did get to perform and play shows. Vin Valeur did play one performance that was like at a private outdoor event.
I think that was when I was in Seattle and I couldn't go, and I was really bummed.
Oh,
I messaged you at the private event and I was like, boo. But okay, how did that go?
Oh, it was really fun. Yeah, it was great. So we did that, and then to end it all, got to perform for a pretty big crowd at this Peace Simulation mini fest. It was like a one-night fest put together by Heavy Talent, and that was a pretty incredible show.
Was that Substation? Or no?
Yeah, it was at Substation.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And then Eye of Nyx, we got to play at Rain City Doom Fest. So that again was a pretty big night, and lots of new people that had never seen us before. We got to see a few friends as well. Yeah. And it just felt really amazing to be, okay, here we are, we're doing the thing that we do again. Yeah. And after 2 years, it had been 2 years since our last show.
Right. Were you a little bit nervous the first time you played live after 2 years?
I wouldn't say I was nervous. I would say that, once I realized that I had brought the power supply for one of my pedals, but it had the European attachment only, and it didn't have the US attachment, I kind of got a little nervous but I borrowed something from somebody and it worked out. But I think the level of just how it takes me a lot longer to get ready now.
Yeah.
Pack my gear, remember how to set everything up.
Right.
Complete teardown, complete setup. That logistical stuff, definitely, none of us are used to doing that too often anymore. So that's kind of the learning curve right now. It's just, okay, all the boring logistical stuff. But
right.
So last Saturday, to end it all, we did like a live set with my friend Vanessa Sconza, who's a Buto performer.
Yes, I saw some of that on Instagram.
Yeah, we did a live set at her private DIY space, and it was filmed and recorded, and so we were kind of focusing on that, and then
Can
we're
we get
going.
links for that here to drop here too?
What was that?
Can we get links for that, for the live, for the video? Any video that you have that I can?
It's probably going to take a little while for us to finish production on that,
That's fine.
but eventually I'll definitely get it to you. And
Just
then this Saturday,
teasing me with all this stuff I'm missing. It's hurting me.
and then we are scheduled to be a part of the Cascadian Yule celebration, which happens in Olympia every year. They didn't do it last year, but
Oh, okay.
we're supposed to do that again on Saturday, and then I think that's
Is that this coming Saturday?
yeah, and then I think that's going to be it for me for this year.
Okay, so this coming Saturday would be, what would be the
18th.
Okay.
Yeah.
You guys definitely, I'm just gonna say, if and I know you're kind of putting the brakes on it, but if you ever get to see any of Joy von Spain's, I always say von Spain because that's the German way of pronouncing it's a soft F V. Anyway, if you get to see any of her projects, To End It All, I Have Nix, anything, everything she does, do yourself a favor and go, because you will not be disappointed. 100% guaranteed. You're my top recommendation. So much good music coming out of Seattle right now, but you know, Joy, I'm obsessed. What it's how it is. I'm a big fan. Yeah. Gosh, anything else? So I'm gonna stop recording for a minute here. So Joy, it has been my distinct pleasure talking to you. I thank you so much for indulging me here, and honestly, best music in Seattle. It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, and
yeah,
really great to talk to you again.
yeah. It's been a minute. All right.
Some people think little girls should be seen and not heard, but I think, oh, bondage, up yours! 1, 2, 3, 4!